Yeah, this has been a pretty lousy week. I can admit that. And it is showing no signs of improving. So, to tell you a little bit about yesterday's scandal, the video I posted yesterday was recorded on Saturday. I recorded it and then, like, a couple hours later, when it became Sunday, put it up. So, this individual that took me to the market, like, I criticize them because this is one of those people that will lie into your face and say that they love you, but then they can't spend 1 cent on, an essential thing like food for you. And I mentioned it to another person who is kind of like a confidant. Like, there's somebody that they're one of the few that I feel like comfortable just discussing stuff with in some, extremely non-vague way. Um, because they're just generally more sympathetic than that person is. So about 3 or 4 hours after I have this conversation with I guess maybe they said something to them, but that person sends me a message, a text message, like, "Stop calling this person with BS." And then we get into a phone call, and man, I have to tell you, with them, I do this thing where I just won't say anything when I pick up because if you ignore their calls, they get somebody else that's like around you to say something to you, like, this person has been calling you. And then if you pick up and say something that's like offensive to them, they get upset and mad and like hold it against you. So basically you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. But anyways, this person, the first thing they say is that, well, after all the cursing and insulting, but one of the things they say is, you got in the line before I did, but I was still getting my stuff, and they try to make it seem as if had I not moved so quickly in getting the things that I'm very used to getting, so that's why I would obviously move faster than they did. They would have paid for my stuff, but they soon contradict themselves as we continue further into this. Um, they then say, not immediately after, but at some other point in this call, "Oh, you're this age, you're an adult, and when I was your age, I had a car and I had a job." And I want you to really think of how insane this is. You just got through saying, or rather implying, that the reason you didn't pay for my food that lasts me throughout the week, my groceries, is because I got in the line too quickly. But then you're also mentioning your rationale, which is that I'm an adult. And I always try to explain to people that there are certain things where if I put myself in another person's perspective, I can understand it. So, for example, if I came to this person and I said, "Oh, can you get me um, a new TV, some new shoes, a computer?" I could completely understand where any adult would say, These are like things you don't need. These are things that I shouldn't have to, buy for you." But when we're talking about food, um, I do take an issue with it. I do think it's insane because, and let's drop all the pretenses here. This person basically told me that because of my adult age, but in spite of, regardless of the fact that I don't have a job, so therefore a salary to even buy this stuff with, you can just go starve off and die for all they care. Um, But I wanted to just mention a few things. So the reason I think that was a really stupid defense on their part is because when I was in 11th grade, so when I was underage, I was like 17 at the time. This person would sometimes pick me up from school, and we would go to places like Burger King, other little fast food places, usually Burger King. And what I always thought was so interesting was that, remember, at the time I'm underage, I would have to pay for my own food. And the last time I went to see a movie with this person was 8 years ago, and it was something I regret because they kept laughing in my ear and it was really annoying. And I remember I had to pay for their ticket. And that year, that I remember when that movie came out, I was 16. So what the reason I'm mentioning this stuff is because I want you to understand that um, if this had happened during a period where I'd been underage, like several years ago or even before that, this person would pretty much still have the same, like they would just come up with some other excuse because there are multiple instances where when I was underage, they still had me pay for stuff that they had no problem. And I kept thinking about, I said, because I mentioned how when I use Uber, for example, to go to this hospital, it costs like 50 or $60 to go and then to come back. The food I got, I calculated it, as in I put it, I'm talking about when you get handed the receipt and they show you how much your stuff costs. The food was about 40 something dollars. It might actually be a little bit cheaper because I did get something else, some that wasn't food related. So what this means is that the cost of that it would take for me to eat once a week is cheaper than going to see this than going to the hospital once a week. Like one hospital visit is of a higher price than the food I used to eat a week. And that's all you need to know about the insanity of this person being unable to pay. But also, I want to throw something else in here. They try to compare themselves to me when they say that they were this age and like they had this car and they had and I said, first of all, because people like revisionist history, but I've been told this stuff and I remember because I was there and I have had them even admit this stuff when they weren't trying to be pricks. This person is not some extremely independent figure. When they were my age, they actually still lived with their parents. And I'm not saying that to insult anybody. There are plenty of people that, live with some other older person that took care of them when they were a kid and then it continues on into adulthood. But I wish people would drop this, like, as I said before, that for some reason I'm surrounded by a lot of people who think that just because they work somewhere, they're automatically like better than another person. Like they're somehow validated in terms of being able to just be a complete prick and call you out of your name and be completely unhelpful to you whatsoever, just because they have a job. Like this is the only thing they can cite or use when they want to tell you how much worse off you are than them. And it's so insane because I look at the stuff that they're talking about, and it's like these people, if you actually look at their lives, they're not that successful. And in a lot of cases, they're even worse off than you are if you had a position. Like, do I really want to be in my 40s and pay and living paycheck to paycheck? Like I said, I don't know how anyone defends these people over this stuff. Um, and I will never forgive that person for what they did this past Sunday, because I think in one of the few instances where someone is asking you for something that they need, which is food, and you find a way to like rationalize in your head. And remember, we're not talking about someone who like said, "Oh, I can't pay for all of it, but I can pay for some of it." Nothing. And they got into one of their hissy fits and were calling me out of my name yesterday. But unfortunately, because my life is like a comic book at this point, where people get mad and then they come and like want to reconcile and pretend nothing happened a few weeks later. I'm not even taking it seriously. At least I don't have to hear their voice, hopefully, for the next couple of days, because I was getting really annoyed with them. And I sometimes am very surprised by the lack of humanity that we get shown. It's like we're not talking about some internet troll. We're not talking about some employer who doesn't care about any employees anyway. We're talking about your own flesh and blood. These people every year tell you the same old lie, the same three-letter lie. I love you. I love you so much that I can't spend 1 cent on food for you so that you don't starve off and die because the only person that would get you anything is currently sick and incapacitated. So I said, when someone tells you they care about you, whether it's a person online, whether it's a person in real life, whether it's someone that is a complete stranger, whether it's someone that you've known for years or even your entire life, don't believe them. Because every time they have a chance to do something to help you, they screw it up. And I even gave the examples of how even when stuff was free, this person couldn't be bothered to be a dependable force of good. I gave the example of how um back when I was like 18, like when I before I had a license, right? I had asked this person, "Hey, can you show me how to drive?" Because I've had other people, specifically one other person do that before, where they take you out to some like empty lot and they have you like get behind the wheel and they tell you make sure you have your foot on the brake. This person's like, "I'm scared, I'm nervous," and everyone made excuses for them. They all and remember, they have a vehicle that they drive around, all throughout the week. So this wasn't something that would cost them anything other than maybe a little bit of time to spend with someone they claim that they care about. And they couldn't do it. Another instance was when I asked them, because I would get, collect bottles to like take to the recycling place sometimes. I asked them, hey, because they get water every week. I said, hey, can you save your bottles and then like bring them down or bring them over when you're like finished, like, maybe once every couple of weeks or something. Like they buy water and then they drink it and they just throw it away. And I said, hey, can you do something that is like helpful toward me? And they said, oh, that's too much work. And I just thought to myself, you're literally drinking something that you drink anyway and storing it in a container for me excuse me, in like a bag that is not heavy because bottles are not heavy. But at least when they're empty anyway. And guess what? To no one's shock or chagrin, they were defended on that as well. But I just want you to understand that whether something costs money and not even that much, or it's completely free, these people can't be expected to help me. They always have an excuse or some stupid reason for why they can get away with being utterly useless. And like I said, I'll never. I just like I think about when we've been like attacked over being unemployed. I think about how like I can go downtown, right, like in my city, and just see all these homeless people, these tent cities as they call them, where it's just a bunch of people laying on the side of the street, or they're like in these like a bunch of tents and just different shelters that they've created for themselves because they have nowhere else to go. And it's like, you're really gonna sit here and tell me that it's easy? It's so simple to get hired somewhere, and you have all these people that don't have anything whatsoever. They all chose to be that way according to you. God, the just world fallacy rears its ugly head, and it gets even more dangerous when, actual people that you know in real life are trying to like stick that on you because of how stupid it is. Yeah, I really was shocked by their complete lack of empathy. I mean, that's almost something psychotic. Like they saw nothing wrong with what they did. They even thought they were doing me a favor. That's why I admitted that there's a part of me that I said before, I don't think I'm gonna make it out of this because if you have to spend that amount every week for the foreseeable future and you have these people who are completely capable of like assisting, but they just choose not to, you're screwed. So I'm very doubtful that we're gonna see any type of good resolution out of this. God. And I said before that I always like um remembered, them their refusal to pay for stuff when I was underage. And it's so hilarious to see them now using that as their new excuse. And I just I don't know, I think it's really, really screwed up. Um but again, when things don't affect people, I guess I have to remember that they show no empathy whatsoever. That's one of the recurring themes I've noticed. And it's so funny because, like this is an individual. I'll always remember this. I was about maybe 6, 7, 8. It was when I was in like early middle, like preschool or middle school or something. And there was some kind of commercial for, I think it was St. Jude's Children's Hospital, and they were showing like all the different pictures of um, the ill children, just the ones who had these like very serious illnesses. And I remember like recoiling at just how sad that was, and her the narrator, like, describing like stuff in this extremely dire way, like they don't have much longer. Just it's just really depressing, right? And this same person saying something to the effect of like, "Oh, well, you could donate to those children, but you'd rather get toys." And it's really funny to remember that remark, and then it's kind of like they wanted me as a kid to have enough sympathy for sick children to like give what little I had to them. But then when they as an adult tell me as an adult I can go starve off and die. You see how like they have it's like that remark is so interesting in hindsight because it shows God, I'm forgetting the saying, but there was a saying about like taking care of your own before you can help anybody or something like that. But it was basically enforcing this idea that before you can provide like some kind of service or charity for another person, you should have to make sure that your own affairs are in order. And it's like it's so interesting to me how like they had no problem saying what they said to me a few days ago, but then like also were sympathetic toward these people that they never met, like someone that they have a a lesser ability to empathize with someone that they know than people that they just see on the TV. It's really interesting just how that works, like how warped their sympathies are. I mean, just in like I'm not saying someone should be unsympathetic toward sick kids or anything, but just like you would think a person that you've seen very, very regularly like struggle with stuff, you would think you'd also have some kind of like empathy for that person, but no, none whatsoever. At least I got to tell them how I felt yesterday. It did turn into a screaming match. I don't even usually like to yell because in the few instances where I have it, like usually makes my head hurt. Um, but man, like I was just thinking about how you have this individual that has actually convinced themselves it's totally fine to have that person that you claim to love not be supported by you in pretty much any meaningful way whatsoever. So you're just supposed to sit there and get screwed over, and like they don't have any problem with this. So they sit there on their little high horse and they get to pretend that you're this piece of garbage because like it really, drives me nuts that we went to an interview as recently as last Thursday. We had a place that was they were like, "Hey, can we schedule like a phone interview?" And then I sent them a message the same day, and I've heard nothing back. And it's like they've convinced themselves, "Oh yeah, this person doesn't want to work. They don't want to do anything." But remember, none of these pricks ever help with getting hired anywhere. They just sit there, criticize, complain, and moan about something that they're not helpful with in the slightest every year. But I'm supposed to sit there and not be upset with them or not think they're full of crap when they try to come around with this "I love you" garbage. This person loves you. That's why they can't spend 1 cent on you being able to take care of yourself. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. They think it's normal. They think it's okay. They think it's good. They think it's just a decent thing to do to somebody. And they're surprised. I'm sick of them. So I said, if don't ever come around me asking for favors because there's some stuff this person can't do for themselves because of their current living condition. I said, hey, don't you better not ask me for anything else. 'Cause you already know what my answer is going to be. I'm going to remember when I tried to get some assistance from you and got told to go starve off and die in response. So I'm really not interested in being of any kind of help toward these people. I always remember when someone does something messed up and I have to keep seeing them. Um, I guess we could discuss because that's kind of the pretty much the only major update from Sunday. Just that person acting like an idiot and actually thinking that they're like doing something helpful or constructive in the slightest by driving some person that is unemployed up to a market and then letting them buy their own stuff, on a salary of zero. But I was so I think it was maybe 3 weeks ago, could have been 4 weeks ago, but it was several weeks ago. I did this video on this guy and it was called "My Second Discord Stalker," and it was talking about how there was this how Discord's like the only website where I don't like just use my actual name because everybody that's on there gets to have like some fake name and some cartoon picture or some other avatar that's not them. And I was talking about how creepy it was that like we had these two guys 2 years apart like seemingly look up my stuff, right? Like know very little about me, but then like just search up videos until they heard my voice and one of it's just this really extremely creepy process. And the guy that did this the second time around, the lying leech, I was in a call. So someone called him and they recorded it. Um, and they played it in the server and they mentioned they confronted him over like sending because the main issue for me with him was like the fact that he tried to make some kind of weird threat if I did a stream on somebody with over with several hundreds of subscribers, a public figure, right? um what I thought was really crazy is that as he's speaking he starts trying to like implicate this other guy. I'm gonna call this guy S, and this is a guy who I haven't spoken to in at least 3 years, if not 2 years and like 11, like just some person that completely vanished. I haven't had no involvement with. I was never really friendly with to begin with. I didn't despise him, but we were on, I guess, cordial terms, but it was someone who never really meant anything to me as far as like, oh, this is one of my closest acquaintances online. So as he's talking in this recording and it gets paused by this other guy, another one interjects to say that apparently there was some discussion about me a year ago where where S, so this is not the same guy as the Lion Leech, like looked up my channel and I was like this, and then this guy proceeds to describe like what I was sitting on and what I was wearing. And I'm just thinking to myself, I don't know how anyone doesn't find it creepy that a bunch of men, a bunch of guys are so like fixated with some male that they spoke to at this point over a year ago that just left them all alone, doesn't bother them, doesn't do anything to them, does not messing with them, to where they have to like find out who he is. And it I said before that like I always try to remain slightly humble. Um, because at the end of the day, I am an individual who has a stagnant channel, and I'm not some famous person, I'm not some notable person, but I swear when I look at some of the creepy, crazy tactics to where you have guys who you haven't even spoken to in years that are like still mentioning you. And this wasn't the beginning of it because when I used to speak to the Discord snake, because we used to be in the same server and I got thrown out of there over some stupid, but distinctively, I remember that he mentioned how it was like over a year or 2 years after I left this server, and people would randomly ask him, "Do you still speak to this person?" Just like mentioning me out of nowhere. It's like I must leave a hell of an impression if I have these people that I spoke to for these extremely brief, limited periods of maybe like a few months, a couple of weeks, like asking about me and trying to figure out what other side I'm on. And like I said, it's always other men. Like, for example, there are plenty of chicks that I used to be interested in that I stopped speaking to, and not a single one of them do I ever try to find out where she is now. Do I ever try to look for her? Because they're in the past. They're like everybody always tries to say if you mention them, you're obsessed with them, but I don't bother these people. I don't look at their social media posts if they have any. I just try to stay away from these pricks because they're a bitter memory. They're something that I would rather leave behind, if you will. Um, and it's like it's so creepy that they have these whole groups of like 2 people, 3 people, 4 people just fixated on men, right? On other men that don't talk to them anymore, and they're looking stuff up about them. Again, if no one else gets why this is creepy to where like you don't tell somebody anything about yourself, and like whatever vague hints you leave here or there. Because I think I mentioned before that like the thing with the Discord snake was really creepy because he knew my first name because I mentioned it to him like maybe a year or two ago, and like literally looked up stuff on this website with where people had like the same first name as me until he heard my voice. And because I'm not that big of a channel, you can imagine the intensive digging. I mean, sometimes I'll literally type my own video's title in on the search engine. I don't even get it. So that's why I said that this stuff has all kinds of levels of just weird, psychotic, um, insanity. And it's like, who has the time to do that type of stuff? Hey, dude, I watched your last stream like 2 times. Was quite upsetting to watch. I truly empathize with your circumstances. Hope things finally manage to improve for the better for you. It sucks. Well, like I said, what we have here is one person who would like pick up the tab, and then a bunch of other people who basically got away with not doing anything year after year. And then because that person is sick, it's kind of like this complete downward spiral. And these people are just kind of instead of owning up to the fact that they could do more, they're sort of like digging their heels and going, well, I do, so this is just that's pretty much what this entails, where it's like a bunch of people that could assist that choose not to, and you're like screwed because of that. Yeah, that is really strange. Why are these guys obsessing over you like that? They actively try to remember and recollect details and how to track and find you. And I really thought it was just 2 creepy guys I spoke to that had a lot of stuff in common because they do. But he got I should have remembered he's not that smart. Like the Discord snake is a fairly intelligent person who went to college and like was writing papers and stuff. The other one is just kind of like this little guy that sits up. So I guess I should have should have figured that out that he had some kind of assistance. But again, what's truly disturbing is that they're doing this stuff to, I guess, find information or to find some person who's not bothering them, who stopped speaking to them a long time ago, And like that's what's creepy to me about it. That you don't even have to be someone that these people have a problem with, and they act in these like creepy because like I said, there are chicks that I liked that I don't even do this with. I never sit up and hear some woman's voice on Discord, for example, and go, "Hmm, I wonder what her real name is. I wonder what other social media sites she's on." Like I said, I just think something is so creepy about the fact that like we always every time there's some weird obsessive person with regard to myself online, it's always another man. Every time. It's always some guy that you don't even bother, you're not doing anything to. It's interesting how that rabbit hole just got deeper. Like at first I thought it was just this one creepy guy on the computer. Turns out it's like 2 or 3 of them just sitting together. And I'll never understand why, because this isn't even just a Discord exclusive thing, but if you go on a lot of people's channels, they have like some kind of stage name or some name that's not their own. And I was like, why the hell can't I get like the same courtesy? Like, and I was explaining this to this guy, the one that you know, that the lying leech, right? The one that it appeared to be looked up my stuff like by himself. I didn't say this to him, but I was just talking about how like he upset some other person about a year ago so much that that person went on his Facebook, found his real name, grabbed all his little different pictures and put them in the video on YouTube. And he got very upset over this. And the rationale that that guy had was that these images were public, so he could be able to, post them in this video. Even though the reason it's a screwed up thing to do to somebody is because none of us knew what his real name was. And even though we had seen what he looked like a few times, it's very obvious that he chose a different name because he doesn't want his real name to be affiliated, with the stuff he does online. But what's so crazy to me is that like this same person then turns around and makes like this weird threat toward me and thinks there's nothing wrong with it. Oh, this is public. It's like, well, your Facebook pictures were and real name were public as well, and you didn't see anyone defending that guy when he put that stuff in a video. Do you see the contradiction, the hypocrisy? This person wants to threaten you with a video that like shows your like face or name and thinks it's okay because it's public. But then when someone grabbed his images and his real name off of his public Facebook, he had an issue with it. Why is it always other guys as well? A supposedly straight guy actively digging for another guy or remember something about that is really strange. I told you, man, if I was half as obsessed with chicks as these guys are with me, I'd be looking up so many different broads just all day long. I tell you, chicks are a dime a dozen. Like I really truly do not look up anything with any of the closest I'll come is if I have messages with them and I'll go and like screenshot 'em and put them in a video. But as far as actively looking up stuff with them, like to find out where they are, what they're doing, what websites they use, I never do that because they don't matter. They're a dime a dozen. Like none of them stand. Even the ones that did like the more significant screwed up stuff. I don't like. I'll give you an example. The one that agreed to on a date with me last year and then started, finding 900 different excuses for why this had to be dragged out instead of just directly going on a date like normal people do. Um, that person blocked me on Instagram, and to this day, I've never looked at their stupid account. I've never made an attempt to see what they're up to because they don't matter anymore. They're an idiot. They did something really dumb, and I have no interest in trying to speak to them or find out what they're because it doesn't matter. They're a dime a dozen. So as much as people like to say, "Oh, you're obsessed with chicks," I'm not the one looking them up. If any of them get brought up, it's entirely for the purpose of making a point or some example that exceeds that one in particular. I don't have any way of tracking these people down. I don't search any of their profiles up, like nothing. These people are completely unbothered by me. I have no desire to reunite with any of them. I don't know, it's just I guess it's kind of like, there's a term on TV tropes called uniqueness decay, where it's like something at first starts off really, like, different and appealing, and then as time goes on, it doesn't really stand out anymore because a lot of its same traits have been usurped by other characters or other people. And that's kinda what chicks have in general, where it's like, yeah, maybe the first couple times, because I'll admit when I was, like, in, like, middle school, sometimes I'll go and look up some chick I knew in real life. But even then, that still wasn't as creepy because you're using like I would have friends on like the same websites who would have this like use your actual name, so you wouldn't be like digging for anything. You would just see them as a mutual. But I don't know. It's like as time has gone on, even if I speak to one of them for months or for some other extended period, I really just have no desire to like even to look up any because it's like for what? We're not going to become friends or have some meaningful. So like, what is the purpose of it? I don't understand. Why do I need to know what they're doing? Like once I choose to stop speaking to them, I might maybe reference them here or there again as an example. But as far as like looking into what they're up to, almost never. I don't even do that with people I'm related to, much less some random broad on the computer. Which is why it's all the more disturbing that these guys get like so obsessed over another man to where they're like trying to track him down and see if they can find him on another website. It's really, really creepy. Yeah, I understand your stances on this. I also follow this as well because I used to stop speaking to a chick I was once interested in. Oh, whenever I used to stop, yeah. Well, yeah, because like, what good does it do you to know what this person's up to? Because you remember on social media, especially stuff that like we post ourselves, usually there's like a character we portray. That's why so many people get mad at me for telling the truth. But you have to understand that, like, when they go on Instagram, for example, and you see her in her bikini pictures or smiling with all her buddies, they want you to think they're just always happy and in such a great mood and everything's wonderful and fine. Um, which you can decide if you want to believe that or not. I usually don't, but my point is that's why I said that you can't even look at something like that as an indicator that the person's doing all right because so many of the stuff on there is staged anyway. So why even bother looking them up on there if it's just going to give you this fake idea of them doing well or being in some good mood? Seriously, there's no purpose. So I say you gotta be able to walk away from this stuff. They really have convinced people to be like obsessed with them. I think it's really funny that like there's this segment of people who try to make me seem like this evil person for saying, "Hey, I'm done with chicks." But you realize that one of the things that happens when you're like so obsessed with the idea that you have to be with one of them and you must stay with this person and keep trying and we can work it out and X, Y, and Z is that you actually do have some guys that get so obsessed with a woman to where even if she tells him that she doesn't like him romantically, he'll still keep like trying to message her and talk to her. I mean, I had a guy who when I was in 12th grade, yeah, 12th grade, he had some girl that he used to date, and I guess she broke up with him. Remember, these they dated for like maybe a couple of months, maybe some weeks. I don't know what the period was, but for some period of time, and then she cut it off. And it's like he spent months talking about how they were supposed to have a family together and they were going to have this amazing, wonderful relate. And I was just thinking to myself, like, I get being sick of like having, like this idea of what you wanted with some woman, but if this person is clearly no longer interested in you and you keep sending them like messages or like looking at their stuff because you just can't get over them, I don't know how that's healthy. I don't know how, like, why that would be something that's preferable to just saying, you know what, I'm sick of these chicks. I'm done with my one looking at their stupid pictures. Get out of my face. I've noticed a lot of guys see other guys walk away from this nonsense, then can't accept how they can simply walk away and try to actively get them to change their mind. Yeah. And remember, it's like an offensive thing to these people that you don't want to talk to these chicks anymore. It's really sad. Like they're offended over something that has nothing to do with them. My question is, how should this decision affect them in any way? It doesn't. But I told you that like when there's a lot of people in real life and online who just can't mind their own business. Um, this is why I used to have this one guy I watched, and he made a video about how he went to McDonald's, um, or some fast food restaurant, and like the employees were rude to him. And in his comment section, he has people attacking him for eating at somewhere so unhealthy. And he's like, first of all, way to completely ignore the point of the video, which was to show rude customer service, right? But then on top of that, what business is it of yours if when he's going through some 8-hour shift, he decides I want to start the day off with eating something from this place that's like close by. Like you get where that's weird, where his choice of food has no effect on you. But they're gonna grandstand about being healthy. What a joke! And of course, the people who are talking about, how he needs to eat healthy and eat in this like nutritious manner, they hide their face because that's the running gag of these internet guys. That whenever they're like condemning somebody over some physical aspect, usually they're the ones who don't show what they look like because they know that they haven't lived up to the standard they're trying to impose on everybody else. But you get what I'm saying, that they tried to like change the topic from bad customer service to making this a referendum on what kind of stuff he likes to eat. And it's really obnoxious and irrelevant and stupid that they would sit here and try to pretend that they're all these amazing like gymnasts who are eating broccoli every day. It's so stupid, man. So I said these people when they get on their high horse, they make sure to ride that thing all day long, 24/7. Just like that woman that I think I have the like I'm gonna put that in the video too. The woman that was like, "You were too young to get married." And I thought about how you have a guy who's talking about the frustration of having a woman agree to marry him, which he only proposes to her because of her religion barring her from dating. She accepts and gets him like really excited, right? At the prospect that he might never have to approach another woman again. This long nightmare will finally be over. And then she backtracks and starts saying how she doesn't think it'll work. And he's not, and his whole point of mentioning this is there's something wrong with making that kind of commitment to somebody and then being able to just walk away from it unscathed. And the response that this woman can muster up to this being recollected is, "You were too young." You better believe I clapped back in in that thing. I said, "Hey, look, don't tell when we live in an era where people are able to have kids when they're underage. Don't sit around here trying to give me no damn age requirement to put a ring on somebody's finger." Just like that ridiculous chick sometime ago that said she's an RN or something like that. Yeah, Talking about her badges. I told you I don't even think that was a woman because we've seen like multiple guys make fake accounts where they if they have a woman's name, they steal like a random lady's picture off the internet. So I don't even believe that's true. I think that was just some guy, trying to look because a lot of them do think that we're going to be more inclined to listen if it's abroad, but they're in for a rude awakening. Of course, there is something wrong with that, but yeah, that chick was beyond stupid. Man, you should have seen how insane it was. It's like she really tried to convince me that getting married is this extremely expensive thing. You could afford the car and the ceremony, and it's like, you stupid bastard. All you have to, and we've discussed this before, but it's like all you have to do to get married is pay like what $100 at a courthouse, which I'm not saying is affordable for everybody, but it sure as hell costs a lot less than having a kid. God, man, like they just create these fantasies in their head and like they perpet like when she was I'm not gonna play that whole thing like I'm probably never gonna release the whole recording, but she was like talking about what was it? Uh most people have the same standards and if you don't improve you're going to only meet people with low standards and I'm like where are you getting this data from? Like, I even said to her, "There's no purpose in talking to you about this because first of all, it has nothing to do with you. Secondly, I know for a fact that even if I did this stupid garbage that you're recommending, you would blame me for if it didn't work out anyway." And that's one of the points I made in the like, "What if I get married?" video, which I'm still writing and trying to like. The main part I'm frustrated about is getting the like recording that plays at the start of it. But I just want you to understand that like the video really opened my eyes to this idea that for a lot of these people, it's never been about romantic rejection. Like if you date a woman or get married to one of them and she breaks up with you or she divorces you and people and these guys online find out about it, they're going to say you're not good enough for them. You should have worked on yourself. You probably did this. You because this whole like tearing a man down thing isn't about like never dating a woman. It's about having a romantic life that has some kind of like turmoil or doesn't go entirely the way you want and then these like miserable guys seeking to pounce on you for this like they that's why I was explaining um even if things had been different and I like dated a whole bunch of different chicks or whatever, if it didn't work out I would get blamed for it automatically and they would say all the same dumb garbage that they say if you're not able to get a date period because it's always the man's fault. That was something I never thought about until I was like going through the hypothetical of this video. I was saying, hey, if I got married to this person and people found out that she left me or something, they put me in the crosshairs and find 900 ways to blame me because that's what they do. Their whole purpose is just to make men miserable. They find all these ways to attack you, to stick a finger in your face and tell you that you're not good enough and all this other ridiculous garbage, even though they themselves aren't that great often, and that's why they're watching this stuff. I really never thought of that until I was like playing out because when I do a what if video, I always mention all the little alternate routes stuff can take. I never thought of that until I was writing the script for the video. They come out the woodwork and just accuse and blame you for absolutely anything possible, which resulted in why it didn't work out. And that's why I said that when these guys show up, there's no point in talking to them. I mean, you saw on the what was it the escort remake video I did, right? Where there's like a guy who says, I'm not judging you for what happened in that 7 years. And then earlier in that same comment, he says you can realize certain stupid mistakes you made and break the curse. So he's not judging you, but he's also accusing you of making certain stupid mistakes, whatever that means. And I just want you to understand that even the people who claim they have this like non-biased view really do. They believe wholeheartedly in the just world fallacy. If they know you want something and you weren't able to get it because another person lied to you or didn't hold up their end of a bargain, they'll find a way to stick a finger in your face and say that you're the reason it didn't work out. That's why I said, don't we like in the past, I've tried to like discuss things with these people and I guess in a way debate them, even if I think debates on romance is really stupid. Um, like I could literally just ban all of these people automatically because I could just say this is something that's not up for debate. Like if you want to have a different opinion, that's fine, but don't come around here telling me, oh, you should do this, X, Y, but I just thought that was really interesting that even if I was more successful with women, it would still be the same like smears and attacks and accusations like abound, because to a lot of them it doesn't matter um how what's a good way of putting it? Like they don't ever factor in that a woman did anything wrong is what I'm getting at. They're completely fine with just accusing you of all this stuff and pointing fingers. And that's just plain ignorance on their part. Yeah. He admitted he doesn't know anything about anything of what happened, but I must have made certain stupid mistakes. And that's why I said what you and you remember that's not the first time one of them wrote a weird comment like that. You probably approach in a weird way. You probably ask out women who are too good looking. By the way, that same one that was like the main discussion topic for the first half of that She's a 10 stream I did a few weeks ago. I showed her image to Rev, that's one of my moderators. He's from Japan. We haven't been speaking as often as we used to. And he is now the fourth person to say that she was not attractive. So I'm just saying, man, like don't ever let people convince you that all these chicks that get asked out are so beautiful and they're all supermodels and they have these amazing figures and all that. It's total garbage. Because like I said, if I saw her in real life and saw what she looked like before I spoke to her, I would not have spoken to her. Certainly not in any type of like willingness to do anything romantic. But that's I mean, why do you think she's in a server like that where people are trying to get a date and all of them hide their faces for the most part because she knows that she's not. That's why I said, man, just it's God, people have all kind of fantasies. They really want you to believe all these chicks are so dazzling and beautiful. And again, it's like that's why I said, what's the point of talking to these people if they're just going to accuse you of things that they have no evidence of? It just seems like a complete waste. It's your fault. Yeah, where when you just think critically, you'll be able to see the cracks. And it was the same thing with that person from with that relative from yesterday. It's like you're gonna sit here and try to use someone being of adult age as the reason you won't pay for their groceries, but let's be very clear about something. You're the same person who I can recall multiple instances of when I was underage, didn't pay for anything. So, we know that's total garbage as well. And I think I have a pretty decent memory when it comes to, like, screwed up stuff with certain people. I mean, I can still remember what movie it was that when I was, 16, I had to pay for their ticket. This grown adult person. I didn't say to them, "Well, you're, 30 something, so you need to get your own," like, you get what I'm saying of how it's so funny how they actually have created a new reason to be as unhelpful as they've always been. And then like pretend that this isn't what they've always done. Like they haven't always done a crappy job of being supportive. So yeah, right now they're mad with me, but give it a week or two. I'll unfortunately be hearing back from because that's the status quo. These people, they get angry for a little bit when you tell them the truth. Um, and they say all kind of nasty stuff about you they don't apologize for. And then they'll be like, well, I don't appreciate the way you spoke to me a couple of weeks ago, but if you want to do this, that's just how they operate. Now, thinking critically destroys a lot of these people's points because I do believe a there is a solid portion of people, and sometimes they write comments on videos, sometimes you see them in real life, who when they want to justify doing something screwed up or saying something nasty, they come up with these reasons that aren't really that solid. They require a lot of assumptions and making stuff up. So it's not hard to dismantle or disprove the stuff that they say because that's just how they are. They just come up with stuff. And they think it's normal to just act this way toward people. And then when you get sick of it, you say, you know what? You can go somewhere with that. But I really was disgusted by the way this person was acting. Like I'm not even gonna pretend that that didn't bother me. Because like I said, I just can't see a scenario where I was I guess what's a good way of putting it? Like if there was some adult that needed my help, right? And they were a person who I claim to love so much. I just can't picture telling them to go starve and die. Like I said, the stuff I get to eat every week costs less than it does to go up to the hospital. Like that's how inexpensive it is. And actually, what's even crazier is if I had a part-time position, like let's say somebody hired me and they wanted me to work 4 hours a day and it's like 15 or 16 an hour. I actually could get that stuff, like, even on a crappy, work schedule like that where they're not even because that's another thing we've mentioned, these places never wanna give anyone a full shift, which is why you end up wanting to quit them so much, because there's, like, a lot of, people who just think that you're supposed to sit here and work for these places for no reason, for nothing, basically. And like I said, the irony doesn't escape me. I've thought a very long time about how you have these places who will tell you, like, you have people, right, who have convinced themselves, oh yes, he does not want to work. Why do you want to quit this job? Well, they're not giving me enough hours. So you get where it's insane that the person who actually wants to work more is like being told about how they don't want to at all when they say, hey, no, I want to actually have a full shift so I can take care of myself. That's why I said it's just people are they just go with whatever fits their narrative. They don't really care about being accurate or saying something that is like fair to another person. They whatever the web they want to spin about you, they will. But I'm just tired of the whole affair. Like people are some real jerks. And remember, Megumi, we have people who have the power to stop it. I mean, like I will never. I'll put it to you like this: if there is ever a period where I don't have the living conditions that I do, where I don't have to worry about like certain pushback as far as like revealing who's who. I'll mention all these different people and we'll go down the list of all the stupid stuff they've done that relates to me. Um, because I just don't think it's right to have to sit here and claim every year that you love or care about someone, and then when they ask you for something as essential as food, You tell them to go piss off effectively. And nobody challenges this person on this. They are the ones that want to create a paradox. Yeah, they want to believe it. It's just like when we would talk about like the I word right now, people would say, "Oh, you think women owe you something?" I'm like, "You stupid pricks. No man who sits here and goes out and talks to all these different chicks, and this includes going on dating websites. This includes going on like the different malls to websites that aren't dating related, just all these different places. No man who does all of that for the purpose of meeting these ungrateful bastards would think that he's owed something. Otherwise, he would just sit on his little. He would be like them. He would just sit there. Oh, eventually a woman will come around and like me because I'm owed that. And like that's why I said that there the reason I don't like that group as just a thing to get called or be affiliated with, like if you notice, I never use their stuff in anything or even want to say their like mention their name, but it's because people use them as a way to discredit you without even listening to the specific things you're saying. Like, imagine sitting here and being upset because some woman agreed to marry you and you want to do this and be with her and possibly create a family and ideal living conditions for all parties involved. This extremely committed long-term desire that far outstretches anything having to do with intercourse, and then have some complete imbecile come on here and go, "You just want to put someone in a bed." You see how stupid that is? But that's why I said they're like I've that's my main issue with that group, that like affiliating with them is just another excuse for people to ignore what I have to say and have these extremely generic, not like some of these guys are so some of the people like, and it's mostly men who do this because that usually chicks don't watch this type of stuff, but like some of these people I've seen them. I didn't know they had I words that were this race. And it's like, you complete idiot. I'm not part of a subculture. I don't just want to get like they have. That's why I said, man, like people's brains have rotted over this woman stuff to where anytime you criticize them, it could be over something completely screwed up that they've done, like leading you on for months or agreeing to marry you or agreeing to go on a date with you and then backtracking. You will have people who will lump you in with this group because to them there is no legitimate criticism of chicks. They're gods among men who are these perfect darling angels, and we're supposed to all sit there, and if they do something that's screwed up to us, better keep it quiet. You don't want to get accused of being part of a group that has all these negative connotations associated with it. So I said there is no purpose in even like having a conversation with these people anymore. All they do is make stuff up and find ways to try and like discredit you that usually have nothing to do with actually responding to what you're saying. It's like it's just pointless. It's utterly hopeless to sit here and talk to these people and expect you're going to get anything halfway resembling a fruitful dialogue, if you will. No, they absolutely want a paradox. Like I said, I'm never gonna forget all the screwed up things that because look, I'm just an individual that thinks that certain stuff should be easier than it is. I don't think if you have to apply to 200 jobs just to get hired by somewhere that won't get rid of you after a week or a month, after you do all you can to impress them and dazzle them, that's ridiculous. And I told you, if anyone creates a paradox, it's these damn employers. I mean, like, I'm gonna have to keep saying, "Oh yeah, I've never had a job before," because why would I put somewhere that I've been fired from? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And then it's like, if these places only want to hire someone that has experience, it's like I have to play Russian roulette. You either tell them about these places you worked for before, they got rid of you really quickly, or you say you lie. Like you tell the truth and look worse, or you lie and have to, like, I guess, live with your conscience, I suppose. Told you, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. But you get the idea that they're the ones who create that paradox, because if these places are just going to keep getting rid of someone very quickly, um, to where you can't even like confidently put them down, because who knows what will happen if these places contact them and ask them about you. I just don't see a purpose to even to acknowledge them at all. But again, I just think certain stuff should be easier than it is. Like if you have to talk to 200, 300, 400, 500, 600 women across social media and in real life just to get a date with somebody, that's insane. Just to get a date with someone who won't beg you for money every day, that's nuts. That's why I told you, man, chicks are just like, they're all they do is the same three things. You either get a gold digger, an attention seeker, or a liar. No ifs, ands, in betweens. It's just that's all you get from them. Yeah, the ultimate aspect about this is that it is all out of your control. Oh, they'll never admit that. They want to believe that I'm like Professor X, and I can, or Jean Grey or Emma Frost, and I have like these telepathic powers, and I can make people watch me, and make chicks go on a date with me, and make places hire me, because everything that happens to you that's bad is always your fault. No matter what. If I walk down the street and someone is speeding and they just smash their car right into me and I fall over and die, that was my fault. I made them drive too fast. If I'm sitting right here and all of a sudden a plane lands on my head from falling out of the air, that was my fault. I shouldn't have been sitting there when that plane was coming up above. If I go into a building and the roof collapses on top of me and I get crushed under the debris, that was my fault. I should have inspected the quality of the craftsmanship of the higher portions of the apartment I went to. YouTube like purposely demonetizes my streams. Like I've fought for two of them to get remonetized, and I've won, because the stuff we say isn't even actually like like explicit. And that's just like, that's insane. Like this website has a literal bias against me streaming, to where every time I do one, they demonetize it after it's finished. And then if I fight for it, both instances where I win, because the stuff I have isn't even, like whatever. And yes, I agree. Yeah, things like that should be much easier than it is. I mean, it certainly was like 2 to 3 decades ago. Like I said, there's a reason why you never heard of the I words or any of the other stuff before like the last 8 years, because this whole thing of having 30 guys talk to one woman, and like people going around and telling you need to be this, that, and the other just to go on a date with some broad that's nothing special. This was not happening back then. I know for a fact it didn't. Like self-improvement to me has always been this joke, because I said before that if you have to get muscles to date a woman who's 300 pounds, there's something wrong with that. If you have to be a millionaire to date a woman who doesn't have a dollar in her pocket, there's something wrong with that. If you have to have 100,000 subs to date a woman that nobody ever heard of, there's something wrong with that. That's why I said self-improvement is such a joke, because you're being asked to do these extraneous amounts of work for someone that doesn't have to do anything because of their gender. And then if it doesn't work out, you get blamed for not being good enough. And everything you did to impress that person gets completely ignored and thrown out the wayside. And I just don't think that's right. Oh man. No, this past week has just been a nightmare on earth, I tell you. Like, I think if I hadn't been so affected by the stuff that's been going on for the last, was it like 8 days now, I probably would have finished the, "What If I Was Married" video already, but it's just like it's just hard to focus on it and then have all this, because this is bad, like, completely awful, and people are acting like total idiots and being as unhelpful as possible. So that's the only reason. I'm gonna try to finish it this week. I'm not gonna make any promises though, because I don't like to excite people for nothing, you know. Oh, great. Another message from that person. Terrific. That didn't last too long. Hopefully they don't call me. I can only hope. I pray that I don't receive any calls from them. So how come there are so many users on here that are allowed to curse and use a lot of profanity in their vids and still get monetized on here? Is it due to their high sub count? Oh, of course. When you get a high enough sub count, you can pretty much break any rule that YouTube has and get monetized with and like have your stuff get played everywhere, with the possible exception of nudity. That's probably the one thing that you can't skirt. But I said before that, like, there are plenty of videos on this website that violate terms of service and they're still here. Um, I mean, you can watch videos of people committing, you know, you know what, as in like ending their own life on this website. But yeah, it is due to their high sub counts. I've seen 8-hour videos where people are swearing over and over, and they're not using light curse words like crap or damn. They're using SF, all those words, right? And they're monetized. They have ads playing probably every 20 or 30 minutes, and they have millions of views. So YouTube is like walking, laughing with them to the bank. So yeah, if you're not a big channel, you do have to abide by some pretty ridiculous rules, and it's because they don't have any real standards. This site contradicts itself repeatedly. Yeah, those high sub counts basically turn people into gods on here. They can do whatever they want, or pretty much anything they want. But like I said, I've never really believed in the TOS of YouTube to begin with, because from the time I was a kid, I saw videos on this site, and I guess maybe back then it was a little bit more okay because they didn't really have as many rules as they do now. But like, I've seen plenty of videos where people are getting called racial slurs, where they're like threatening violence to somebody else. There's a video of a guy who is telling another one that he's going to break his teeth because he's like insulting him. And I just want to mention this because this got brought up yesterday when I was in this call with these people and finding out about all the creepy stuff that's been happening behind the scenes. I do not pretend to be a tough person, and what I mean by that is a lot of these guys that are like making threats, and if I saw you in person, I would do this. Many of them are the same ones. I'm not even joking. Who will do a video, or they'll be in some call with somebody that gets recorded, and they'll say, if this person comes to see me, I'm going to call the officers. I'm going to call the cops. And I always thought that was such a bizarre contradiction. So you'll sit here and act like you're the toughest guy ever, but then you're going to run and tell the police if someone comes to your place. Because with me, I don't sit here and make any threats in any capacity to anybody about like I will like do this to you. None of that. Because I don't try to pretend that I'm this extremely powerful being, and because it would be fake. But also because I don't try to instigate those type really just any conflicts with people, but especially physical ones, because I think that stuff can get really dangerous. And I don't like to pretend I'm someone online that I'm not in real life. So I'm just saying that's one of the like things I noticed, that a lot of people who make these like bold statements about what they'll do to someone if they show up are the same ones that are like talking about calling cops on people and this officer knows who you are and all this other stuff. And I'm just like, can you pick a lane? You're either going to be the tough gangster or you're going to be the guy that calls the police when someone comes to his place. Can't be both. I just think it's really funny. It's like they can't decide if they want to look powerful and strong or if they're going to hide behind the officers. They just can't decide. But yeah, those high sub counts, man, they let people get away with anything. People with high sub counts are, I mean, you'd be shocked at some of the stuff that just goes into this. I remember that hooligan. If I saw you in person, I'd knock you off. Yeah, and it's like we're not going to meet in person. But you understand that like I don't come on here and make threats. And the guy who made that threat, he's so stupid that we know what he looks like. We know his real name. Apparently, some of us know his real number because he was getting prank called by a few people. And some of us know what job he has. It's like, you can't be that stupid. You can't be so dumb as to say this type of stuff. And there are all these people who can easily find out who you are or have found out who you are. That's why I said, man, people just do some of the dumbest stuff, and they don't think there's anything wrong with it because it's on the internet, so it doesn't matter. I guess you can just threaten to assault somebody and say, but that same doctrine has been very prevalent if you think about the way people act toward me. I mean, who could forget? Not even 2 or 3 weeks ago, I had a guy who said, "I hope you get you commit," and then was like, "Oh, get AIDS," and it's like just something I thought was interesting. I was reading. So Megumi, remember how you said X-Men was kind of forgotten? I didn't agree with that because we have plenty of books that still sell, and they got a movie a couple of years ago, and they're still trying to give them another movie in the MCU. And now they're getting the '90s show is going to come back apparently. But if there's any major Marvel property that you could actually argue is forgotten, it's probably Fantastic Four. They were the original team that Stan Lee and Jack Kirby created. They had a rather long run, over 100 issues. And what I thought was interesting is I was reading like the first must be 8 or 9 over the weekend. And in one of the issues thing is because the main appeal of Fantastic Four when they came out was that they're a superhero team that acts like a family. Like if they're not saving the world, they're always arguing with each other and calling each other names. And it's a dynamic that was really unique at the time. But one of the things that Human Torch says to Thing, when things like, if I didn't look like this, Sue would look at me the same way she looks at Reed. Is Human Torch is like, my sister wouldn't look at you if you looked like Rock Hudson. And I said, wow, whoa. Rock Hudson was a major actor who was considered by women to be very attractive, who in the 80s was the first major celebrity to die from AIDS. So think of how crazy that is, that like I have this weird guy on the computer tell me to get AIDS, and then I'm reading Fantastic Four just because I've never read it before and I've heard good things about it. Um, and one of the first issues of like the historic original run mentions an actor who 20 years after that issue came out died from AIDS and was like very significant from having died from that. You get where that's like that's a heck of a coincidence. And that's why I said this disease is nothing to play around with, and it's not funny, and it's just a really rude and stupid thing to say to people, whether it's in person or online. There's just certain stuff I really don't think anybody should joke about. I don't. Like I've seen what that disease does to people. It eats them away and turns them into skeleton. And it's like, I don't understand how anyone would think that was humorous or like an okay. And the fact that like these people they have this stupid excuse. Oh, we're just talking, and some people don't think it's funny. It's like I don't know one person in real life I could go up to and say that to and not get slapped in the face. And they'd be right to do that. Like what's wrong with people? But yeah, they mentioned Rock Hudson, and I was like, wait, I've heard that name before. And it's just an extremely sad coincidence that like at the same time as I see this reference to this actor who passed who was notable for being the first major celebrity to die from this disease, I'm getting like told to get it by some random person on a computer who is like confused as to why that would offend me to the extent that it did. And sure enough, he kept trying to say, "Oh, that's how we talk in this server." I've been in that server now for over a month. No one besides him has said anything like that to me. Not one like, only one. Even the lying leech didn't say that to me when we had arguments in the past. So I said, man, these people just there's something wrong with them. But yeah, I've been really enjoying Fantastic Four. I'm gonna at least try to read to the end of Lee and Kirby's run because I have some other stuff I want to read as well. I was reading Uncanny X-Men, so I got to like issue 300 and some number, and I know it's after Claremont leaves the book. It's like the 90s is somewhere where I'm stuck on that book, and then for Spider-Man, I was in the 500s. I got to Dan Snott's run, and I couldn't take it anymore. But yeah, it's so interesting to read a book like that. Like you have the art by Jack Kirby, one of the most influential, like two of the most influential comic creators, just collaborating on what would be the first of all of the major Marvel properties to like actually breathe and to become something. I mean, it's really just I don't know, it just feels so interesting just seeing something from so long ago. There were back when there were no movies, there were no shows. It was just the comics, and that was it. And I've always said that like the appeal a lot of older comics have for me is that they feel like an episode of a TV show because of all the dialogue and the panel work. Like modern comics tend to have less panels and less dialogue, have what people call decomposed or decompressed storytelling. I shouldn't say decomposed, but you get the idea that they're they're very interesting because of how different they are from a lot of what we get now. So I'm probably going to try to check out the remainder. I want to definitely read until we get to the Galactus trilogy. That's like issue. I'm on issue 13. That's like issue 48, 49, and 50 because that's when Galactus first shows up, and like I think a little bit before that is when you get Black Panther for the first time. So I really want to get to at least that part. But I think I probably will read their entire run just out of respect because I do want to see like what was the original collaboration that these men had together. No, I think it was issue 8 where that line of dialogue appears. I mean, that's one eerie coincidence. It just goes to show you that a lot of this stuff just is not funny. Like a lot of people upset me, um, especially online. And well, I shouldn't even say it's like people online and people in real life have a tug of war. But I don't wish that fate on random people that like when I think of someone that would just upset me to the point of actually wishing some ill health on them, it has to be someone that did something that ruined my life or was like extremely, what I'm talking about? Like, it's not just like people writing stupid stuff on the computer is one thing, but like it would have to be someone that really did something egregious and damaging. But even then, it's like, God, of all the things to wish on some random dude that you were arguing with on the computer, like what's the matter with you? No, Akatsuki merchant. We were talking about how there was a guy in a piss. You heard the same story. This guy in this Discord server that that was like, I guess, called himself arguing with me and said, "I hope you end your life and get AIDS." And then I was reading Fantastic Four, the original Stan Lee Jack Kirby run, and I got to I think it was the seventh or eighth issue, and Human Torch is like making fun of Thing, and he's like, "Oh, it wouldn't matter if you look like Rock Hudson. My sister would still not think you're attractive." And Rock Hudson was one of the. This is like 20 years before he died. He was the first major celebrity to die from AIDS. So it was just like really ironic that after this guy makes that type of remark toward me, I read a comic where they mention an actor who 20 years after the fact would very significantly pass away from this disease, which is just reaffirming my stance that it's not a joke. Mm. Yeah, I feel like many people online just think they can say anything to anyone and not consider their reception or feeling of the other person. And if they meet any pushback, they just claim it was merely a joke. Yeah, people use a joke as anything, that's their justification to say any nasty thing to you whatsoever. They can call you out of your name. They can tell you to get some deadly disease. They don't see anything wrong with it because they're psychotic. They come online and they think it's supposed to be like the wild wild west where you can't say this stuff in real life because you know you would get some consequence, rightfully so, for doing it. But because it's on the computer, you think you have plot armor and you can treat people any kind of way and face no repercussions whatsoever for acting in a disgusting manner. It's nothing to joke about. No, none of these diseases are. How, like, what is funny about doing that stuff? And when he said this, nobody laughed. I certainly didn't. I didn't have anyone muted, so I didn't hear any giggles. It was like that's what I said. It's this weird psychotic attempt at humor that is not even amusing at all. When have you ever heard a funny joke about someone getting a deadly disease? I'll wait. A joke means anything they say that they don't want to have accountability for. Yeah. I made it very clear to his because I called him the kid sidekick of the person I was actually trying to talk to. I told him, um, I have no interest in speaking to him after that. He said something extremely stupid and rude, and he can't instead of just outwardly saying, "This is my fault. I shouldn't have said this." He doubles down on it by changing my name to a racial slur, and then like trying to say that this is what we do, even though nobody else has said that to me the entire time I've been in that server. So I told him I'm not interested in speaking to this guy ever again. Yeah, a joke is anything they don't want to be accountable for. You think if I made a joke where I said, "Oh, I hope some woman goes outside and she gets grabbed by some man in the dark alley," you think anybody would think that was funny? Would say, "Oh, he was just joking." Maybe I would say that if I'm trying to not be held accountable for making a disgusting claim like that. But you get the idea that they use the supposed act of joking to get out of being accountable for saying disgusting things about people. Yeah, he could have just at the very least apologized and have some decency. Nope. His decency was then calling me a racial slur. Oh my god, these people online, they have no sense of anything. They're just, like, I'm not even saying this to be funny, but it's almost like they try to compete to see who can be the most irredeemable, obnoxious um bastard, Because I was explaining this to like even in my capacity as someone that was, hiding their face on Discord, the people that like I only speak to people I want to speak to, first of all, but the people I speak to, there's always a basic modicum of respect. I don't call them out of their name. I certainly don't wish any disgusting, deadly fate on them. Um, I don't tell them to shut up. like when did it become a thing where people expect you to be very extremely rude to them and disrespectful, and then also like expect you to put up with that and to talk to them still or be interested in speaking to them ever again? I love that contrast to Wild Wild West. Basically, anything goes online. It seems, according to these people, this is what I've noticed on that site in many servers. But you know what it is? The internet actually is not in like in an objective manner of speaking the Wild Wild West, because there are consequences that you face for doing things online. So, for example, YouTube has the terms of service. People, you can ban somebody off your channel if they're acting crazy. And then instead of these people who want to act so tough and all the rest of this stuff, right? Going and saying, "Oh, whatever, I can just make my own channel. I can just go to another website." They cry about it. They go, "Oh, my free speech. He blocked me on his channel. I wanted to write more mean things to him, and now I can't, even though I technically can still write stuff about him everywhere else, but I can't write stuff directly to him because they're glass cannons. It's the end of the world to them when they get banned on one channel out of the millions that are on this website. Like I said, if in real life, if I go in some church and I start swearing that God doesn't exist, you can infer that I'll probably be kicked out. But you know what? If I want to say that, I can go in my house. I can go in all kind of other places and say that type of thing. Um, you have certain places that won't let you go in there if you're not wearing like a certain dress code. If you don't want to wear that stuff, you don't have to, but you just have to do it somewhere else. You just can't be in here. So it's so funny how when the same type of guidelines are applied online, where if you want to say this stuff, that's cool, but you can't say it here. They cry about it and they act like they're being censored. But if they were, they wouldn't have these other avenues to talk on. That's why I got so upset with that with the Discord snake, because it's like this is a guy who actually thinks you shouldn't be allowed to ban somebody on your own stream. That if you do a stream and someone wants to come on there and write all kind of weird stuff, you're supposed to just sit there and be held hostage while your chat argues with this person, or you have to like beg them to leave it you alone. Like that's nuts. And he kept saying the same stupid phrase. I believe censorship anywhere will lead to the inevitable rise of more censorship, which is total garbage because YouTube has always banned naked people. And if you want to see naked people, you can go to another website and see. And it's always been that way. It's been that way since I was a kid. This website has never allowed nudity. And if you want to see that, plenty other places you can go to watch it. By the way, actually, I take that back. YouTube does technically allow nudity. If you like, there are movies on here that people have uploaded that have naked people in them, but they have like an age restriction on it. So you know what I'm saying, man? Like that was such a stupid phrase by him, because he's basically telling you that if you have, it's kind of like if in real life I said, I believe any laws will lead to the inevitable rise of more laws. So if you put a law on people not being allowed to jaywalk, right? To walk when the light is red. Oh, they're going to put a law that says when the light turns green, you can't walk either. It's that same lazy way of thinking that you either just you and then he has the nerve to say that he thinks free speech should have consequences, when the consequence for the free speech of a troll acting like a prick is that they get banned off of somebody's channel. You see where like they can't like don't these people, because they can write well or they can speak without stuttering or something like that, they think they're smart. They want us to think they're intelligent, but the actual stuff they're saying is really dumb and doesn't have any function in a society. It's mostly be age restricted, so yeah, it's within moderation. Right, but the point I'm making is he'll look at something like that, right? Where there's you can still put it on here, but you have to log into an account to see it, right? They don't want children to stumble across videos like that. He'll look at something like that and actually convince himself that YouTube is censoring like his watching of those videos. Like by them putting up an age restriction so that children don't watch naked people. They're being, because I even explained that, like, we had the discussion about YouTube Kids, how you can't comment on videos made for children. And I said they do that because they don't want predators and other people that mess with kids to say something on their stuff to try to like talk, because you know that like predators have gone after kids online before, like that. We all know this. And this guy was like, no, they should let people talk on there. So if you get how insane this is, where even if you can like, think of this, okay? Imagine if you go to a news website and they won't let you leave a comment on the article, but then you can take the article and you can talk about it on YouTube, on Twitter, Facebook. You're really going to say you're being censored? That just because you can't talk about this article on their website? Because make no mistake, if you want to talk about a video that's on YouTube Kids, you can watch the video and then make a video about it on the main YouTube, and say it's not for children, and they'll let you put it up there and everybody can talk about the video and it'll be over there and you can have your own discussion piece, right? So you get where it's like every time he says you're being censored, there's somewhere else you can go to still lay out your opinion, which means that his logic is completely faulty and makes no sense. That's why I said these people just, they don't think. Their brains have gone away. They have no ability to even think critically or to have any semblance of like intellect. They really believe that YouTube is the only one site. They really believe that YouTube is the only one site they can express their opinions on. I guess so. But even when YouTube does like light forms of moderation, like, oh, okay, you can't talk about this person on their channel, you can go to all these other channels. You can see nudity, but you have to like log into your account to see it. They really, like, even little light stuff like this, it's too much for them. It, like, I remember somebody making a video about how people were being censored because there was some, like, I think it was a some like news organization put up like a video and the likes and dislikes were disabled. This is before YouTube got rid of the dislikes, by the way. But then the comment section is free. So like, you're being censored by not being able to click a button as to whether you like or dislike a video, but you're you're also like still able to, you're also being censored by being able to write what you think of the video. So I said these people just, this website can't do anything. If they put any rule up, it's too much. And I complain about YouTube all the time, but there's just certain stuff that I don't think makes any sense, as far as like the things people will call censorship, and like they don't even explain like, what are you okay, because it varies person to person. So you're never going to get a concrete answer. It's just basically anytime YouTube does something that is restrictive in any capacity, you're going to see them like cry. Um, but just to like bring the whole thing full circle, I was thinking about how with this person, right, that didn't want to pay for my food. Um, I'm trying to like picture the scenario, if like, basically, I can't imagine having a son or a daughter or a cousin or a niece, and they become an adult and they're like constantly never employed by anywhere. They're constantly like, not, they're known by me to have looked for work. I've seen them apply to place. I've seen them go to interviews, but they just don't have a job. I can't imagine telling this person that because they're an adult, I don't care if they eat or starve to death. That it doesn't bother me one way or the other. That this is just something that they should automatically be able to do for themselves because they're an adult. And like I said, man, I could do a whole video where I just take my camera and go downtown and you'll see all the homeless people that are digging in trash cans to get something to eat. Being an adult does not automatically mean someone is able like that's but see, again, when you remember the fact of the examples I gave you of how there were instances when I was underage where this same person wouldn't pay for stuff for me, that's how you know they're full of crap. Um, and the problem is you can't really explain to them by giving the examples how ridiculous they are because they talk over you. They're very loud. They don't want to listen. And that's one of the reasons why I didn't even say anything to them the previous night. But yeah, I will never forget this period. I will always remember that these people acted like this, and I don't understand how you can claim to love someone, and then when they ask you for basic essential stuff like things to eat, you turn your back on them and tell them that they're an adult, so they should just automatically be able to afford this stuff indefinitely. Yeah, when I come to kid when it comes to kids becoming adults due to their age, a lot of parents and other family members can become very dismissive towards them. You know, it was about 6 years ago. There was a relative of mine who got themselves kicked out of their apartment building because they were mouthing off to the person that was like the landlord. And one of my relatives like let them move in with them, and they said, this person irritates me. They don't do dishes. They don't really do any kind of housework whatsoever. But at the same time, because of their and this person, to be clear, was an adult. They were 18, but because of their relative young age, they don't want to like throw them out and just give them no place to go. And it seemed like this extremely cruel thing to do to someone. Um, that they felt like some basic level of fondness for. But you get the idea, right? That there are so many adults who, even as adults, get assistance from older adults. I gave the example of how this same person, when they were my age, lived with their mother. And I don't say that to make fun of somebody or to, cast aspersions. Because remember, I'm not the one who insults people for what type of work they do. You don't see me doing that. But I'm just saying that it's really hypocritical of them to play revisionist history and pretend that once they hit 18, they were this extremely independent, so successful, able to afford everything on their own person because they weren't. And it's I don't understand why people in real life, like, it's not, again, I get it, computer trolls, whatever, they'll treat you like garbage no matter what you do. But even people in real life who see you often, who have some who to some basic degree of what's a good way of putting it, of being around you often, know that you look for work, like they just don't have any empathy. They really don't. And it's even crazier when I think of with my best friend, for example. This is a guy that I've known for 16 or 15 years. And it's like if you sit him down and you explain to him, hey, look, I applied to these places. I hear nothing back. And you tell him, right? You give him the basic rundown of events. He'll understand you. Even in situations that he hasn't been in himself. I mean, I told you that our main difference is that his parents paid for him to go to school. But he admits that if they didn't do that, he would be just as screwed as I am. Um, and I said, isn't there's something really telling about the idea that a person who's not related to you can be more sympathetic than the people that claim to love and care about you. I just think something about that is very what's the way of putting it? It's like it's very telling. But yeah, in your hour of need, and the one time where you request something from these people, they turn their back on you. They ignore you. Um, and yeah, they complain and complain, oh, you don't have a position, but they really don't care about you having one, because if they did, they would try to assist. If it was really something that bothered them, you would see them. I gave this example during my previous stream. They would be the first ones to come over and be like, hey, you know what? Next 2 hours, we're gonna just apply to places. And you never see it. And the reason you never see it is, as I said earlier, when things don't affect people, it doesn't bother them. When things don't affect people, they can just casually dismiss the seriousness of it. They feel nothing. Um, and like I said, if there's one thing you get from these last few streams and that video from yesterday, it is that do not ever convince yourself that just because someone claims they love you and they care about you, that it actually means a single thing that's worth a piss. Don't ever buy that, period. Because if they were able, if they really truly cared, when you ask them for something you need, something essential, they would do it. Remember, I'm not asking people to take me to go see a movie or to some other fun adventurous thing like a club or a bar. I'm asking them to help me apply for work. Kotsky Merchant writes, I noticed that people will still talk trash about you even if you have a job. It was never about the job. It's about tearing you down to make themselves feel better. I pity these people. Well, I mentioned that before, that the same person who acted like an idiot yesterday when I was working at this place the previous year, so not the one from earlier this year, one from last year. They were complaining about they didn't like that I had that job, and they didn't. And I told them just straight out. I said, when I don't have a position, you complain, and then when I get one, it still isn't good enough for you. So there's no point in even like trying to appeal to you whatsoever. I told you, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you have no job, you get insulted and mocked over it, and even if you get one, you're told it's not good enough for you. Megumi writes, definitely worse to stand by actions actually hold weight, not words. I mean, hey, if this person had done the action of getting me some food, I could, eat it. I can't eat their words of you need to do this for yourself. It goes from get a job, loser, to oh, you work there, loser. Yeah, you just can't win. So I said you just have these people that are like, they're asked to do the most simplest of things. Do you get where there's something completely insane about a person asking for food and being told that like they just can't. So remember, the person who's not employed is expected to spend 250 a week to go see somebody at the hospital repeatedly, but then the person who has a job can't pay for the person to get something to eat every week for roughly 40 something dollars. No one thinks that's crazy. Or there's something twisted about that. I told you I'm very confident in my beliefs. Um, and I am not someone who just requests people to do ridiculous things. Like I mentioned before, every time I get a new piece of technology or like a book or some other thing of leisure that I like or like clothes, I always have to get it for myself. So it means that every time I ask for something from an older person or like some other relative, for example, it's because it's something that I need, like an essential thing that I can't live without it. I think is very important. Um, I mean, I mentioned you before, like I asked about 2 or 3 of them for help with paying for school, and, it's like, I don't ask those people for anything else. Same thing with, this one from yesterday and the day before that. It's like, you ask this person to get you some food from the market, and they can't be bothered. They think they did nothing wrong. They think they did me a favor by driving me up here, and, it's like, I really I don't care what anyone says. No one is going to defend this for me. You're not gonna get me to change my mind. Um, I don't make requests of people that often, certainly not this person. So when I make one and it's an essential thing that I need and they can't do it, and it costs infinitely less than a lot of the other stuff we know they're able to pay for and afford and whatever. That's how you know that person's full of crap. And they are truly the human garbage. And I don't care if I wouldn't care if they have 10 jobs to sit here and be able to be okay with that, and then to double down on it and basically say that you hope you really couldn't care less if I starved to death. I don't care. Like I said, no help from these people for anything that could be considered essential. But then they're the same ones who are going to cry to you about what type of shoes or clothes you're wearing. Like, get out of my face. Yeah, I'm gonna probably get another one of these things going where Um, the place I applied to on Thursday should be getting back to. They said if you don't hear anything back, you didn't get it, which I already told you. I'm not surprised because that's how these guys are. They smile on your face, laugh, make it seem like they want you. You show your commitment, they ignore you, and then you get blamed for it. I have another one that I told them I'm available to speak to them any time in the afternoon between Monday and Friday, and I never heard back after I replied to their email. But like I said, when these places don't give you a chance, when they don't give you um I mean, even an opportunity to like actually set up an interview, it's your. I remember what everybody says, you're not entitled to women. Well, I'd like to ask, are you entitled to being able to take care of yourself, to being able to support yourself? I think you should be. I'm not even joking. Sometimes I look at these like people that work these jobs and they make all types of mistakes. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to some fast food place and they gave me like the wrong burger or the wrong drink, or just like something that they did completely incorrect. And it's like, why is it that when they make mistakes like this, I'm supposed to sit here and be because I just tell them, hey, you made a mistake or I ordered this, whatever. I don't like get upset or angry or anything, but unless I leave without it, and that's usually because somebody else drives off very quickly. But it's really nuts that like these places like the what I'm saying is when I observe the people that work at these places, I'm never going to be convinced that they're so much smarter than me and they work so hard and are any harder than I would. So I said it really does upset me, and I'm tired of all of the nasty. just blowback I get from a bunch of people who don't even do anything themselves. I thought about this a lot of times as well whenever I observe and notice someone made a mistake. Yeah, it feels like every time I work somewhere, if you make a mistake, it's World War III. But then when these other people do, it's completely fine. That we're told that they're just getting started. This is their first position. We should have some kind of sympathy. But like, why is it the manager never shows this to you or the higher ups? Because like I said, the stuff that I was messing up on, especially at that second one where like people were giving me like the nasty reviews, they did the same thing to other people as well. But I didn't have the plot armor, I guess. But that's why I said that like that stuff really upsets me because when you believe that you have tried as hard as you can with regard to like, working somewhere and then like doing all the stuff they tell you to do, and you have these people who are basically telling you that it's always your fault if something doesn't go the way you want, you're going to get upset because you're tired of like constantly doing everything and anything to appeal to these employers to try to keep some position or try to get some position in the first place. And then just being crapped on. Even if you get the job, you get crapped on. Oh, this job's not good enough for you. You're not, uh, fulfilling your unlimited potential. It's like, guys, I just want a place that hires me and has me work 40 hours a week so I can take care of myself and pay rent and get out of this garbage situation. Like, it's all I want. And I put up with a lot of stuff that I didn't find appealing. Like, I didn't like having rude customers ask me creepy questions or curse me out over us not having a product or having to stand for 7, 8 hours straight and run back and forth while wearing some mask that fogged up my glasses and made me sweat. So I said, man, you just can't win with this crap, I tell you. You just can't win. God, I don't understand what's wrong with these people. They act like it's so easy. This same person, this same relative, I was on the phone with my best friend in front of them maybe like 2 or 3 months ago. I'm not even joking. They were trying to make getting a date sound like the easiest thing. Like, you just meet a girl and you ask her out, and it's like, yeah, yeah. I was making a voice that like made fun of how dumb what they were saying was, but because me and my friend were laughing at how simple they just I guess they're one of these people that has never truly faced any adversity ever that wasn't self-inflicted. And I'm not talking about adversity like, oh, you had intercourse with somebody and you popped out a kid, now you have to pay for child support. I'm talking about actual stuff where external circumstances prevent you from getting what you want because this person has never been terribly ambitious. So when they got hired by the place they work for, you know, decades ago, it was like, okay, whatever. And when they met, their first partner of many, they were like, okay, whatever. And I guess that's why they have such a hard time empathizing because for them everything came easy. They didn't have to sit there and apply to 300 places and get like 2 jobs out of that. I guess that's it. The old saying is true. When people haven't experienced something, they just can't understand it. But I just want you to think of how, like the nightmare roller coaster this saga of the last 4 years has been. It's like you leave college because you can't afford it, and the following year you apply to a whole bunch of places, hear nothing back, and then this virus comes out of nowhere, um, and it becomes harder for to even like hear back from places. Period. Then the year after that, you finally get hired by someone. Then they threaten to get rid of you on your first day of doing work. Then after you're gone from there, you keep applying to places, hear nothing back. And then this year you apply somewhere, get hired, and then get fired over by people who never even met you over reviews that on a website that most people don't even use, period. So that's why I said that when people say I hope things get it just seems like nothing is improving. It's just the same old stupid garbage. And if it does change, it's only something that gets worse. Um, just for the sake of discussing this, because I want to mention it really quickly, before we wrap things up. I thought about this. Okay, I already read it. But I was just thinking I mentioned before that like I used to call the suicide hotline when I was younger. I would never call them now because I became aware of their scam a long time ago. But I had two instances where that was something I considered doing. The first time was in 2000, uh, either 13. I think it was 14. Yeah, it was 14. Then the other one was in 2017, and I came a lot closer. The first because when the second time was when I like it was just easier for me to do stuff without people noticing. But sometimes I really do think, and I'm not saying this to get sympathy. I'm not saying this to like get someone to feel bad or anything, but just sometimes I kind of wish I had done it at least for 2017, because it's just like when you think about how crappy stuff constantly has been and how like you've constantly had the stuff you want to do just like made impossible by other people, and you're being like blamed for everything that happens to you that's bad. And when I was a kid, I didn't get blamed for bad stuff happening to me. Like, um, I don't remember there being this group of people in real life or online that always found a way to make things my fault. Um, but it just seems like nothing that's happened over the past like 5 years that I would consider memorable or like, oh my God, this is like a big event has actually been good. It's just been the same old awful garbage just repeating itself. And you're supposed to like keep putting up with it on this idea that it might change because time is passing, but instead you just get more cynical about it ever changing because you see the same thing playing itself out over and over again. And you always have that realization that the same people who are telling you to keep holding on because things might get better are the same ones who will blame you, for why it stays the same if that happens. So for example, when we had that one stupid lady that was talking about, you have to like wait 5, 10, or 15 years to be upset over a stagnant love life or whatever that garbage she said was, when she later wrote that she believes I would prematurely cut off a woman that was interested. That's her way of saying that no matter what happens, if you don't end up with a woman, it's I'm gonna blame you anyway. It's just automatically gonna be your fault. And that's why I said that like I don't see where any of the stuff over this 5 year, 60-month period has been redemptive. It's been like something like, oh man, I'm so glad this happened. There have been stuff that's been released that I liked, different TV shows or movies or just that type of stuff. But like an actual thing that happened to me that I thought was really good and I was like so ecstatic. Like even when I remember being very excited when I got the license, but in hindsight, that was just another cruel joke because, like, after being told about how important having one of those stupid things was, you didn't get a vehicle for 4 years, and that's an ongoing saga of nothingness. So even the few times you might get some kind of like brief adulation, um, or I guess inner excitement, like when you get the license or when you get hired at one of these places, it just seems like there's something that comes along a little bit later, or maybe it's something you realize gradually that just shows how meaningless it all was to even get excited over it to begin with because of how like things played out afterward. Like for example, if I got hired by that place last year and was still working there, which I wouldn't have quit unless something crazy would have happened. But just let's pretend hypothetical, I got hired by that place and then stayed there until now. I would be a lot more I guess happy about that than the way things turned out. So as in I would associate that memory with being like a significant good thing that occurred instead of just another cruel joke. But I don't know, it just seems like in hindsight, a lot of like you really can't point to anything that has had like, there are certain people I've enjoyed speaking to. I guess it would be a shame to lose some of that. But as far as like a major event that was good and that, like when it happened, you were happy and in the long run it turned out to be this really great thing. It just seems like I can't put my finger on anything where I can attach a good memory with some major thing. I guess maybe I didn't make it entirely clear what I was saying, but that's just how I feel. That if I had done it back then, I would have been spared a lot of stupid stuff, like a lot of the current garbage. Because like 5 years ago, I didn't think it was impossible to get a job, and I didn't have people calling me lazy. Um, that's what I'm saying. I just look at the way things have turned out, and I can't really see where there's been any kind of real um vindication. Like there's been something good that happened, like as a result of me sticking around. Because that's what people always say. Oh, just keep trying, keep hoping, keep fighting. But it's a really nebulous thing. It kind of reminds me of how you have these people online who will say, if someone's like loved one passes away, oh, things will get better. But then year after year, you still remember that person, you still miss that person, and it doesn't. Um, and this is something that's been testified by multiple people that have lost someone that they loved. But yeah, I really don't see what good or great thing has come out of this period. Like just I don't know, I find that so interesting how you can like have had some thought of doing something and then decided not to do it again out of like this desire to see what would happen and to like give it a chance to improve, and then it keeps failing to get any better and you get blamed for it even though you're the only one that tries to actually change anything. um and then you think about when you considered like just ending it all, and you're like, man, that wouldn't have actually been that awful of a thing if I knew what was going to occur. But yeah, now we can just confidently predict awful stuff is going to happen. You can predict when you go to an interview, you're not going to hear anything back. You can predict that like it's I don't know, I just think it's so sad that like people will call you cynical for noticing a pattern that you really didn't want to see keep repeating itself, to where you actively try to avoid it by, applying different places, talking to a bunch of different chicks. And then when it keeps playing out because these places and these chicks are basically all the same, um, they blame you for the way that they decide to do things. So effectively, if things don't go the way you want, even if someone else made a choice, like made a conscious, independent from you choice to just say, no, I'm not interested, I don't want you, you'll get blamed for it because people have the just world fallacy, where every time something bad happens to someone, it's their fault, even if we can prove that the same stuff is happening. Like, I'll never feel bad about the woman stuff because you look at how at these big, huge groups of guys that are getting like nothing from chicks, right? And it's not just you, it's not just a couple of guys, it's a whole bunch of us. That automatically makes me feel, I guess, more vindicated. And even with the like with the employer thing, I've seen so many homeless people, and I have to imagine a lot of them came over here seeking some good life and it didn't work out, and now they get blamed and told that they're lazy and don't want to work and all the rest of that stuff. God. So it's sad. This whole saga has just been terrible. Um and people really they think you're supposed to just put up with this stuff forever. But yeah, I really do think if I had ended it back then, I wouldn't have missed anything that's been worth it. And I think that's sad because we tried hard. Of course, we'll never get acknowledged for our efforts to like actually create something or some scenario that was decent. But every time you want something and it requires another person doing something, they mess it up. Like things are so backwards that if somewhere doesn't hire you, you get blamed for it. If a woman doesn't want to date you, you get blamed for it. If you get a license and then the person who said if you got a license, they would get you a car, doesn't get you a car, you get blamed for it. Like when does it end? When do people stop sticking these nails in your hands and trying to put you up against the cross and finally acknowledge that there were others at play that made stupid decisions or made decisions that were antagonistic to bettering you and actually say, hey, maybe there's more blame to go around than just constantly sticking this at this one person. Because what, like I said, you go outside, or excuse me, if I go outside, whole bunch of homeless people. I go online, whole bunch of men that can't get a date with a woman. So like I don't understand where this comes from. Oh, sorry, I'm forgetting. Just world fallacy. It's always my fault. So I said so, like somebody could literally just run me over and I would be blamed for it. They're driving at 100 miles per hour, but I should have looked. So whatever. Thanks for showing up, Megumi, Akatsuki Merchant, and into the toilet we go.